Hi, I'm Omnisende. This video is not the usual, because I've been struck with a terrible illness known as I have a job-itis. However, I'm going to try my best to put out a cool and interesting video. What I've come up with is to talk a little bit about the evolution of jawed fish. I'm going to start with the Cambrian and I'll go up to the Devonian when tetrapods evolve. Let's get started. In the Cambrian, fish were very small. The earliest fish that we know of is called Hycuichthys. It was only an inch long and it didn't have jaws. It was also missing pectoral fins and a few other things we think of when we think of fish. Just a strange little guy in general. It was a filter feeder that was not at all the top of the food chain. It probably got preyed upon by something like Anomalocaris. To end this section, I'd like to cite Wikipedia for a truly poetic line. There are 13 circular structures along the bottom that may be gonads, slime organs, or something else entirely. Truly a relic of our time. 10 fishes out of 10. Next is the Ordovician. More like Ordovician, am I right? There's not many fish we know of from the Ordovician, and they still weren't the dominant lifeforms in the ocean, as they were outcompeted by vertebrates like mollusks and arthropods. However, there is one species that we know pretty well. Succubombaspis. It's a very strange little guy, and while we do know more about it than other fish from its time period, we really don't know that much. It probably lived in shallow waters and it had armor on its head. Still no jaws, and it probably was also a filter feeder. The Ordovician was defined by a man named Charles Lapworth in 1879. It was to revolve an argument between people who wanted to call this specific rock beds by their Cambrian or Silurian respectively. Silurian is the period after this, by the way. Lapworth thought that the animals there were different from those of the Cambrian or the Silurian, so he decided that they should be their own period. The Ordovician was only internationally recognized in 1960, which was 40 years after Lapworth died. Just for Lapworth, we'll give this a 10 fishes out of 10. Next is the Silurian. The Silurian was truly a wonderful time to be alive. It was when jawed fishes evolved, after all, and jawed fishes are the subject of a video, so clearly they're perfect. The two most important groups of jawed fish in the Silurian were placoderms and acanthodii. I'm saving placoderms for the next period because there were some really truly cool placoderms in the Devonian. So I'll talk about acanthodii for now. The first species I'll talk about is Nerapiscacanthus. It's the oldest near-complete acanthodian from the Middle Silurian. It was a carnivore that had a slender build, but it was 2 meters long. They're closely related to chondriichthyans, which are what we know today as cartilaginous fish. That includes stuff like sharks, rays, and chimeras. As someone who loves chimeras, the Silurian gets 10 fishes out of 10. Next is the Devonian. Placoderms were around during the Silurian, but I want to talk about a Devonian placoderm called Dunkleosteus. You may have heard of this foul beast. It was one of the first vertebrate apex predators, and while it's not as huge as people used to think it was, it's still pretty big. It was more than 4 meters long and it had an armored head. It has one of the largest bite forces of all animals, and it could quickly open and close its jaw to create suction. Another Devonian fish is Chirolepis. It was an early raven fish, so it was close to the common ancestor of most fish alive today, not including tetrapods like us though. It was built for speed and probably was an active predator. Its shells could be opened very wide, allowing it to swallow prey almost as big as itself. It was only about 55 centimeters long though, so not a huge threat if you ever plan on going into the Devonian oceans. The last Devonian fish I want to talk about is one that's very, very important to me. It's my father, Tiktaalik. While he possibly could have been almost 3 meters long, I unfortunately did not get any of that height. He lived in the late Devonian about 375 million years ago. However, his brain wasn't so big, so I don't think all those years translated to much wisdom. To be fair, no one else his age had much of a big brain either. Tiktaalik was one of the earliest known fish to have a neck, which made it easier for him to hunt on land in shallow water. While he did love meat, he never was one to grill. My father isn't perfect, but he certainly deserves 10 fishes out of 10. That's about it for this video. Check out my Patreon, which you can subscribe to for $1 a month to support me and get your name at the end of my videos. Thanks Captain Kobop who helped make this video come out, and of course thank you to Art of Dying and Mr. Kill as well. I promise regular videos will come soon. Thanks for watching.